sky's not blue.
Welcome back to the Cult House Podcast. I'm your host, the Scholar of Spite and the Saturday Night Delight, Roger Riddell. Joining me today, he is a publisher, writer, actor, director, and special effects artist, Ryan Oliver. How are you doing today, Ryan?
Hey, Roger. How are you?
Pretty good. I've wanted to have you on the show for a while, so I'm glad that we kind of made this connect.
Yeah, likewise. Thanks for having me. You've interviewed a bunch of colleagues and buddies of mine, so I've been pining for this too.
Yeah, no, I've been aware of your work for at least I guess 13 years now. Because the first thing that I was aware of that you had done was the Atlas Moth video for Your Calm Waters, back when Ache for the Distance came out.
Yeah, that was the second music video I ever directed and produced, and it was easier than the first because, well, that was the one and only video that, if I'm not mistaken, Scion AV, if you remember, had like a big campaign where they were funding a bunch of music videos and different music scenes, trying to sell cars, to college kids. So they were handing out $5,000 checks to everybody to go, make videos. So we had a fun budget on that one. That was all underwater, if you recall.
Yeah, and I was gonna ask, how much of a pain in the ass was it to do all of those underwater segments?
It was, but it was fun.
Yeah.
Nothing easy is worth doing, I like to say. And when I get an idea that I can't let go of, you'll just find a way to do it. And that was shot in the middle of the winter holiday season, in a pool on Lincoln Avenue. It was a scuba training facility where they test scuba tanks. So we rented out the pool for the whole day and shot underwater. And then we had a terrestrial set that was kind of like my old job's loading dock. We built some sets and tied it together. It was fun. And yeah, I'm very proud of that one. And then, it started a train where I went on to do all the following Atlas Moth videos, and had a great relationship with that band. We had a lot of good. I'm proud of all those videos.
Yeah, no, I've always loved the video for the Six Passengers Death.
Yes, yeah, that one is unique because it's one of two videos that we shot in multiple states, which was challenging itself. I have some friends and colleagues in Los Angeles, so we built a set out there and shot some desert stuff, and then we built the interior UFO hunter underground bunker in my friend Gregor's big loft, and friend David dressed up, David Wimsat, who's been a huge collaborator with all the Atlas Moth projects. He's actually in the video, and he dressed the whole place with all of his electronics. And okay, here's my favorite part about that video. Nobody ever will appreciate except me, and I always point it out whenever I watch it, once a year or whatever. There's an oscilloscope in that video. There's one shot, and the shot is it goes from its regular readout. Anybody doesn't know, oscilloscope, if anyone doesn't know, is it takes sound and converts it to an image, a graphic, a readout. So David Wimsat, once again, took the Atlas Moth logo and had a guy write code so we could translate the logo to sound, and then we fed the sound into the oscilloscope, so it pumped up the Atlas Moth logo on the screen practically no CG or anything like that. It was all just done in camera. A lot of effort, over a few weeks for like a 1 second shot. But if anybody goes and watches that, I think that part's pretty cool.
Yeah, and for anyone who's listening, like that's the logo in question. Done by Cass Knox, who is also in that video.
She is, yeah. She's in a couple videos and a great friend. And I remember asking Cass, like, "Hey, you're great friends with the band. Do you want to be in the video?" And she's like, "Yeah, I do. You know, I've got big weird eyes and I look great on camera." And she did. Yeah, the whole cast in that video is great, and it was super gory and bloody and camera work. Yeah, I love that one.
Yeah.
Which other ones do you want to talk
about? Well, I mean, I guess the one after that for Coma Noir isn't, I guess, not quite as complex, like special effects wise. Yeah, Coma Noir, yeah.
The title track, yeah. That's the only music video I've ever done that was band performance. And
yeah.
Usually it's not my wishes to do that. And if a band wants that, it just doesn't interest me because I'm a filmmaker and I like try to, treat doing a music video as an opportunity to be an extra invisible member of the band and tell a narrative story and, absorb the song, the lyrics, and do what I would want to do if I was in the band. I treat it preciously and I think of the artists that I'm creating something for. But yeah, there's only so many really interesting band performance videos. And that one, for what it is, I think was really effective. It's shot in black and white. And there's this big old biker clubhouse that I used to live at. And, we took over that place for a day and had these big, nice, wide shots. And, it's an interesting video. And I thought the video ultimately really served the band. And it was a really important album. And I wanted to give them, what they wanted. And, we all worked it out. And it was, it was a fun day on set for that one. And that album is special to me because obviously we did the graphic novel for Blind Cyclops, I'm sure we'll talk about, but excuse my, I mentioned earlier, I lost my voice last week. So pardon me being hoarse, kind of getting it back now. So when that album came out, there was a vinyl limited edition, 100 limited edition vinyls. David Wimsatt, once again, I collaborated with, and we put together a confidential case file that you got with your vinyl. That was a manila envelope with the old-fashioned twisty tie and 10 lyric sheets, and each lyric sheet was like an old document, a coroner's report or something from some law office. They were all affected in a certain way. One of the page, we made 100 of each lyric page. So we had a stack of this one song, and we'd like light the corner of those papers on fire, so it looked like it was in a fire. And then one was crumpled up, and one was, a couple of them were tea stained and distressed and antiqued. And the staples, this is all, I have to throw all credit towards David Wimsatt at this. And I think I have it right here. Like the staples that are used to bind those documents are with this old Bates stapler that takes a copper or brass coil of wire. So, when you staple it, it stretches out a length of wire, bends it, and then creates the staple, and it's like such a small detail, but it feels like you're getting a package from the 1940s, like for, serving the Coma Noir theme. The paper clips were vintage. Everything was as it was. The business cards, we had a business card for the titular character the detective, and all it said was his name on it and detective. And yeah, I have a copy of it here. And on the back, the way business cards used to work was you just had your name and a title on it, and then you hand wrote information that you wanted people to have. Like, do I want this person to have my phone number or whatever? So we wrote a phone number on it, and the phone number was a hotline that we purchased, and we recorded a radio play, like a 1 minute detective, Detective Chris Valentine. It was a cold and rainy night, and I was, I'm not going to paraphrase it, but it was like an experience that 100 people got and all seemed to really respond to. Like we got a lot of great feedback, and the little things like that make me happy.
Yeah. Yeah, no, that's one of the things too that like I've always appreciated when a band does that sort of thing, because like it can be anything from like with the Behemoth album, like the type of like the paper stock that's used in the booklet in the album and like the little liner notes and stuff in there, or like
Yeah.
there was a Nine Inch Nails album in 2007, but I remember there was a thing with it where the inside of the album had this stamp on it, like the US Bureau of Morality, and there was a number there. And if you called it, it would tell you that it was a pre-recorded message that said that by calling this number, you're now under investigation for subversive acts by the US Bureau of Morality.
Like, that's fun to me. That's like my whole motto with anything I do that is like a tangible piece of art that's being mass produced. I want it to be detailed and fun and involved as you open it up. Afternoon of exploring, and like some of the books that I've put out, the back of them have all of this shit in it, like buttons and stickers and book plates. And I have so many friends that were like, I'm like, did you read it? They're like, no, I wouldn't dare open it. I feel like I'm going to ruin it. I'm like, no, get in there. Fuck shit up, put stickers on things. Here's the business card, incidentally. I just opened up that, yeah,
Yeah.
another hand wrote the phone number. Yeah. Do you remember the Alice in Chains Jar of Flies special edition CD?
Yeah.
It was like red jewel case, and in the spine, the hollow of the spine, there were a couple little plastic flies bouncing around inside the plastic, which like I always thought was the coolest thing in the world. And I stole a page out of that book. For Godfly, in the back, you get a replica, a little specimen card. And I bought these little plastic flies, and I hand painted the wings red, put them in specimen bags, stapled them with the vintage stapler, like nights and nights of assembly on, my big long dining room table. And it's fun to me, it's like exciting to put something together that is more than what the people think they're paying for,
Yeah, because
so
art is an experience.
If I buy something, I open up the mail, I want to be surprised overly than what my expectations were.
Yeah, no, it's art as an experience,
Yeah, you can see
Yeah.
how excited I'm talking about it.
So speaking of Godfly, I've got my copy here, which I've still got all the things in here too.
Yeah.
But
So
I had a chance to read it I guess about a week ago. And the thing that stuck out to me a lot as I was reading it was that I kept thinking that it was the kind of thing that like if it were animated, I could see it being something that would fit in. Like, do you remember like MTV Liquid Television?
Oh yeah.
It had that vibe for me while I was reading it. Like, I was really into it.
Yeah. That's cool, man. I haven't heard that one yet, but that's absolutely makes sense. I've got my copy right here too. So what you've got is a second edition second print. And the first one, you know, on the same theme, we Jeff Cooney, the artist for this book, we treated this first limited edition very preciously, and you got all the stuff in the back. And then we did the red foil cover. So this is the first edition, you know, front and back. There's like little red foil elements, which, you know, is an extra expense for us, but it was like you get one chance to push that big red button and launch that missile out, and you don't get to pull it back. So I just want to like make sure everything's as nice as it can be, and hopefully it turns into repeat customers, you know, so you know every time they order something, it's gonna be a fun open and a fun read. Book's got to be strong first, and then we dress it up.
It's one of those things too where I think when you read it multiple times, you notice little details each time too.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Jeff's an amazing artist. We're about to release his new book, which we're kind of teasing right now. I don't know much I can talk about it, but it's coming out in August, and we're debuting it at Fan Expo. But as far as Godfly goes, you know, Jeff and I have been friends for a long time, and he watched me go through the process with Birdfeeder, my first book, and he was like, okay, Ryan's really getting into publishing and putting out his horror scripts, his graphic novels. So, you know, whatever I was doing convinced him to, you know, jump on the wagon with me. And he threw his back into this book. And just, you know, you could spend more time really poring over the artwork than reading my text, I would say. You know, it's just very rich, even for a book that's largely, you know, monochrome with elements of red. It's just very rich, you know, but it also is a period piece. So I think it kind of lends itself in that way.
Yeah. You know, I like that the text is worked into the art itself in a lot of places too. Like there's a lot of unconventional like lettering in it.
It's all hand done by Jeff. And you know, I basically gave him my screenplay. It was a longer story that I can nutshell it, but I gave my script, and then he ingested it and just kind of, by and large, did the adaptations. So when pages would come to me, it was wonderful surprise, you know, because you know, it's a collaboration. So I wanted him to take those liberties. You know, it's, you're working with somebody else. It's no longer my story. It's our story. So yeah, he killed it. I couldn't be happier. And we may be working on an origin book. We'll see.
Yeah. So I'd be all about that. Like I could see like Godfly being a thing where it's like a concept that you could just kind of follow across like different time periods and different scenarios and everything. It's kind of like the I guess kind of like a Mogwai scenario from like Gremlins or whatever, where
Ding,
yeah.
ding, ding. You got it. If anybody out of the not familiar, it's Godfly is basically, you know, this seemingly age-old insect that carries around this horrible aura with it, where if there's a Godfly on the wall in the room you're in, and you have bad energy or ill intent, or there's this negativity in the room, it multiplies and is cast back upon you. And you know, the Godfly works with what is given, but you really don't want to be around it. And there's a whole mythos and lore that's monologued about by Ringmaster Bugsy, the flea circus proprietor in the story. And he basically alludes that, you know, the lifespan of an average housefly is maybe a week or two, and he's had this thing for like 35 years. He won in a card game from a decrepit magician in the, you know, at a sideshow, you know, in the back of the tents. And yeah, in this story, he, for reasons takes the Godfly out and reintroduces it into society to with bad results, I guess you could say. And so the story that I kind of gave it away, but I'm in the middle of I'm at the end of finishing up the origin script, which is basically the God maggot, which escapes from the floor in the devil's throne room in hell. There's a demon that escapes hell, or leaves hell to go on a mission to Earth, and the God maggot just kind of stowaways on his cloven hoof and lands on Earth and is stuck here, and is instantly the most influential and overwhelmingly powerful entity on the planet, small as it is. Like it says in the back of the book, bad things come in small packages too. And the Godfly is its actual origin for me. I had a anthology screenplay, with 4 chapters, and in between, as tradition with an anthology, in between the stories, you kind of need that palate cleanser moment, a crypt keeper or whatever, to kind of, okay, the next story, kiddies. And I didn't really want that kind of schlockiness, so I came up with the Godfly, and just a little insect, and he would land on the windowsill of this home where pie's cooling or whatever, and then you go inside that house, and then that horror story would begin. That story would end, Godfly would take off, land somewhere else, start the next story. So it was just kind of a more subtle thing, and I excised it from that anthology, which never really, nothing became of it. I took all those stories and did other things with them, but the Godfly turned into this.
Yeah, dude, that's wild. That's like, I knew like none of that before this, and I kind of just like described the same scenario.
Oh,
It's like great minds think alike, man.
fuck yeah, dude.
No, so you mentioned Birdfeeder, and so I had a chance to check that out too, and I also really liked it a lot because it was another one where, as I was like reading it, it was another one that gave me like vibes of like other like anthology kind of things, where I was like, this would fit in like this kind of anthology that I'm familiar with, where I was like, this feels like something that could fit into something like Love, Death, and Robots,
Yes. um uh Birdfeeder was another short script that I wrote 15, 20 years ago, I guess now, when I lived in Los Angeles. It was like I had a 5-year LA, like I just wrote. I didn't go to parties out there. I was an apprentice at a special effects shop, and I wrote screenplays at night. And my girlfriend and dog were sick of me, and they're like, get out of the house. But Birdfeeder is arguably, it's a horror story. It's dark, but it's also, maybe you agree, maybe a little bit sweet, sad. There's like kind of a love story. It's an older couple who are retired. The gentleman of the house is a writer, and he's inside his office, and the lady of the house is a nature enthusiast, and she's specifically an avian, bird. She's a birder, and she's set up her entire backyard as this avian sanctuary that brings in birds out from all different migratory patterns. Over the years, they've established this woman's backyard as Mecca. It's a source of food and a mating ground, and a safe place to pit stop, for the seasonal flight. And she stocks up bird feeders with all kinds of different suets and seeds and worms, and really leans into it. But she unknowingly calls upon the birds most ancient, secret, and deadly predator, as nature goes, and that's the bird feeder. And is so before I get too far, before I spoil what
Yeah, well,
it
don't
is,
don't spoil it. Leave
I,
leave some mystery, man.
well, this was the first cover, which was very mysterious and like unassuming. And then the one you just held up, the second edition, Pardon the Glare, definitely tells it's there's a spoiler on the cover, tells the story a little bit more, shows the horror, but there's I got to make up a monster, that I used to call it uh On Golden Pond Meets Tremors.
Yeah.
I don't know if that's accurate anymore or if I feel that way about it, but I think it's close enough. And that's as much as I'll say.
Yeah.
And that book also, I think, is unique because it was a blind collaboration with Rosario, who was childhood friend of Stavros from the Atlas Moth. So during quarantine, Stavros and I would hang out. And I'd be, telling him about I'm aspiring to, get into this book game, and I need to find an artist. I'm a writer without an artist, and he's like, I might know an artist who's looking for a writer. So he put me in touch with his friend Rosario. We collaborated we basically the whole book came together without us ever meeting. He lived in Lake Geneva and now lives in Chicago, but it was pretty unique and risky, but it was like I didn't know anybody else who was gonna draw a book for me. And he does also, as you notice, very kind of like stark, like black and white, very contrasty imagery. And nothing I haven't told him. I was nervous at first that maybe because there's so much nature in the book, it would lose all the vibrancy that I wanted, but like that it kind of made it sadder and it pulled, it kind of made things a little darker. And yeah, and then the back half of the book has the epilogues that I'm sure you read. So there's a couple extra little bits in there as well.
Yeah, because I like the simplicity of the story itself, but then when you supplement it with the epilogue material that kind of fleshes everything out even more, I think
Yeah,
that makes it even better.
posthumous accounts, we'll say the journal and the letters. And I was like, when I was, I knew when I was getting into the book game that I was going to be fluffing up the packaging with stuff. So like, I was a little overly ambitious because I wanted the epilogue one, the secret birding journal of Viola Masters, to be a separate little journal that was going to be like, I was going to have them produce as like tiny little journals. And then you were going to get a packet of letters. And it's just like too much. Like, let's put it all in the book. It worked out that way. Otherwise it would have taken a lot more time and money. And, but I'm really proud of it. Yeah, it's one of my oldest stories. I love it. And, yeah, it's my mom's favorite story of mine. And it's, one of my friends who's got one of the most twisted minds is one of his favorites too. So like, that balances out for me.
Yeah, no, the vibe of both of those stories, I think, really just kind of like scratches that itch for like how like I grew up watching Twilight Zone reruns and the Munsters and stuff like that with my grandpa. So it really kind of like scratches that itch.
Yep, for sure. Yeah,
Yeah.
Rod Serling, and he's inked on my body. I love that stuff. Night Gallery. It was like when I was young, I really liked. It was like I think I like old people stuff, but that's like those are the grandparents of the genre that a lot of us seem to lean into, and it's where all the good stuff is.
My favorite horror movie of all time is probably like Bela Lugosi Dracula. So like I'm all in that same vein.
Can't complain with that one. I'm not particular to vampires myself, but I have my top vampire films.
Yeah.
They're, Nosferatu.
Oh yeah,
I
I love
like
Nos-
the
I'm
old,
looking forward to that remake.
yeah, and Near Dark and Let the Right One In. I guess
Yeah.
top of my head anyway.
Yeah. No,
What
so what was that?
is it? What's next?
You mentioned Fan
Oh,
Expo, and that's coming up in August 16th through 18th. So what's on the agenda for that?
well, we're delighted to be there, first of all, because I've been, submitting, writing letters to all the big comic conventions to try to get a seat at the table with the big cats. And hadn't panned out until this year. And I, as I submitted, I was just kind of like, oh, I already had uh, resigned to the fact that it wasn't going to work out. And then I got okay, you got a table. And I was like, all right, let's do this. So truthfully, I don't really know what to expect. I know we get a big table where we're gonna have 4 titles within 3.5 years of business. Not too shabby. Um, and there's a 5th title right behind it, and so we're gonna bring all our inventory, load up the tables, t-shirts, buttons, free stuff, special deals. Jeff will be there with me. We're gonna have posters and hang out, meet our colleagues, because it's much like directing, or it's being a writer. It's very insular art where you're alone and you're a hermit. You don't really get to hobnob too much unless are an industry vet and a pro. And I'm you know um, I'm an eager, hungry, and happy to be here, newbie or rookie or whatever you would call it, and not ashamed, because I'm coming in hot and with no ego, just I love telling stories and I want to share them with people, and seeing people's reactions. And um, none of this is fortune making work as of yet, but I, the energy to do it is absolutely there, because at the end it's all about getting people to open up a book and read your story. That pays the most, um, in the end, and I think if you're not doing it for that, you're probably not going to make money in the future. I think you gotta do it for the right reasons. Money will always come along. That probably goes with any art form.
Yeah, I think people can always tell if there's like an authenticity to it, or if it's just something that someone's just doing to try to make like a quick buck.
Yeah.
Yeah.
um Nothing wrong with making a quick buck, but put out something cool.
Yeah, no, it's the stuff that I always like the most in any medium of in any creative medium is the thing where I can tell the people that made it were having a lot of fun doing it.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, if you're not having fun, find something else to do.
Yeah.
We're not It's a quick life.
Yeah. No, I mean like getting into a table at a comic convention too is great, because like in the last few years I've been a lot more intentional about seeking out more like independent creator owned comics and things like that. And the stuff that I've always ended up liking the most uh tends to be things that I just kind of stumbled across when I was at a comic convention, when I was walking through like an artist alley, and I was like, oh, that looks interesting. I'm gonna go over there and check that out and talk to the creators.
Yeah, something just catches your eye, and your brain just knows what you want to find. And even in a convention, with so many competing images, and just everything's pining for your attention, it's amazing what your eye and your brain will filter through and draw to you, and lead you on the right path. Sorry, my computer just gets out of my lighting got weird.
Oh, it's
Um,
okay.
and truth be told, I guess I should fess up. Like I've been to, my share of conventions, but they've mostly been like horror specific conventions, like back when Fango convention was still a thing, and you know, like film world conventions, and a couple comic conventions for sure, oddity conventions. But since I've been in, you know, this realm, trying my hand at it, it's been it's made me anxious to attend because I like maybe I'm afraid feel like I'm not good enough to be there, and I'm going to walk around and be intimidated and go home and like feel like giving up, and you know um I don't like sometimes I feel like I want to create more than ingest. I feel like it's more important to like, serve your art, and then you can like relax and drink in other people's things. I'm a weirdo though too, so like don't anybody listen to me, but like
Yeah.
I'm making something, I want to like shutter myself in and not have any influences if I can control it, and just kind of like it's almost like researching a role, for like an acting part, and you just kind of like get in the mode, and uh, fill your time with you know productivity.
Yeah.
I could have
Yeah.
said that distinctly, but
Yeah. Yeah. No, it's I think the good thing about the conventions too is that like as far as meeting like comic creators, um I don't think I've only ever met one comic writer or artist who I like came out of it thinking, oh, that person was an asshole. But like
oh
everyone, I feel like most people in that community are like that I've met are usually pretty nice. But
yeah,
yeah,
well, that's good to hear, because
yeah,
I've met a couple assholes. Unfortunately, I wasn't
yeah,
looking for. I wasn't expecting them, and I probably allowed them to do that because when I meet somebody who's like in the same lane, I just pour myself with them, like, oh, tell me everything, and like, oh, here's what I'm doing, and I'll probably chew their ear off and drive them nuts. But I'm eager. I want to learn. I want to hear. I want to hear vets talk about it. And every almost every comic shop that I've been to has been lovely, supportive, encouraging. And then there's a couple people that I've crossed paths with who I've like leaned into, with eager delights. Oh, tell me, and they've like I've put myself in a position where I allowed them to be a total bastard, you know,
yeah,
and it's a bummer, It's like we're all making art, like uh, I just don't. I don't have time for it. You know what I mean? Like there's no reason to be negative, even in the fucking genre that I'm like ensconced in and looking like, when I look at me, look around, you know what I mean? Like you think I'd be an asshole, but like, it's not hard to be nice and pleasant.
yeah. I mean, that's I know what you're talking about there too, and like I think sometimes like I have anytime that I go to a con, my kind of like perspective is a little bit different from yours because usually when I go to cons, I usually go for my friend Matt's website, Monkeys Fighting Robots, to cover the con for them. So I think to some extent, I people probably tend to be nicer to me because I'm wanting to like interview them for stuff or whatever. But
Oh
at the
yeah.
same time, there are still people where I'm like nervous before I like meet them and or because they're people that I've looked up to like since I was a kid. Like twice for Monkeys Fighting Robots, like I've had a chance to interview Todd McFarlane, and going into that, like I was like, oh, he did like one of my favorite Spider-Man runs. He created Venom. I loved Spawn when I was a kid too, and so it's just like, um,
I've got all this
yeah,
thing figures up here from this monster line up here on the shelves behind the phone.
yeah, and it's just like going into meeting someone like that, you're just like, I don't know what to expect, but like he was he was like surprisingly chill, which was nice.
Yeah, I believe that. You know, um, I forget what buddy of mine turned me on to this interview. He said something really poignant, and I'm glad I thought of this because it's always worthwhile to remember. He was, you know, he was talking about how many streaming services and channels there are now, and how many different conglomerates, well, like Marvel, DC, like all those big companies are owned by, or partnered with these streaming services. So he was saying something to the effect of, and it was a convention interview. I'm sure you could find it easily. Saying that if you look at the list of the top 100 titles for graphic novels or comics, if you're 1 through 99 are probably already spoken for a streaming service. So if someone's going to make it, they're going to make it. But if you're number 100, he said something effective. You are the number one hot commodity right now that everybody's going to want to bid on because nobody has their hooks in it, and that was encouraging. As a semi-retired director, filmmaker, I used to like look at it as, okay, I'm not going to be filming so actively anymore. It's expensive, takes a lot of energy, a lot of crew, a lot of planning, time, everything. It's the most collaborative, exhausting art. Anything can go wrong. And so I remember feeling like, well, I'm going to take my scripts and just adapt them to graphic novels because I don't have to collaborate with one person, and at least some my story will be told on some level. So where I used to think I was like quitting filmmaking, really, how many movies come from being a graphic novel to begin with? So it could be for me or other creators that is the way to start the journey to having a bigger platform. I think these stories do just fine as graphic novels, but they were conceived as film pieces.
Yeah.
That's all I say about that.
Yeah, how did you get into filmmaking? Because I know that you've done some acting before too, and that back in like the early 90s, I think I saw that you were in like the ABC after school specials.
Yeah. So I was like, weirdo, ADD kid, class clown, and never really got great grades. I was smart. I did good on like all the standardized tests and stuff. I just only wanted to pay attention to things that were of interest to me. Like it didn't really take a shine to math or, you know, history per se. But like, my book reports, were fire. They're all Stephen King books and Clive Barker and Edgar. So like I
Yeah.
love to read, and I would read novels instead of do my homework at night. You know, it's like I wasn't fucking off. Kids would go out to recess, and I'd go in the computer lab on an Apple IIe computer and write a little short story. Um, but I just didn't care, and I didn't wrap my head around what a consequence is for like later in life. Like I never saw that like your grades will lead to some success or whatever. So I basically had a great time in school, made great friends. I went to 3 different high schools, 4 different times: public, Catholic, military school. And then my parents were like, all right, fuck it, we're tired of wasting money on you. Back to public school. So I'm back in public school, like junior, senior year. And I got, there was a cute girl in the theater department who was doing musicals. So I went and tried out for a play. I was like, oh, this is fun. I can be a class clown and everyone has to sit and watch me do it. I don't have to get, smacked on the wrist with a ruler for it. You're locked in a seat, and I can just goof off for an hour on stage. So I caught the bug and then quickly realized, all my friends were going off to be doctors and lawyers, great grades and GPAs. I was a little bit more fucked. So I knew, I was like, I'd like to pursue this acting thing. And then I was like, how many colleges are going to accept me? Ding, ding. Oh, Columbia College has an open admission policy. So you can get in, you just have to maintain it. So I went downtown to Columbia, like right out of high school, majored in theater. And, basically just after college did a decade of off-loop theater with factory theater that I'm alumni with. I did did a handful of plays for Defiant Theater, which is Nick Offerman's alma mater, my friend Joe Faust. And and then I started doing special effects for the plays that I was in. So if there was gore or a character needed to get shot on stage, I'd be in a play and then I'd be, making an actor bleed on cue, from like some fire extinguisher filled with blood behind the flat wall. And, it was just, I caught the bug. And I used to consider myself, a much more serious actor. I was clean cut, hair was up here, not down here, no tattoos. And I, basically I wrote, the last piece of theater I did in Chicago, my swan song was this play called Among the Dead. And it was my zombie script. It was like, I started off like, oh, it'd be cool if we did Night of the Living Dead on stage. And I got like one page into transcribing the movie onto, I was like, fuck this, I'm writing my own zombie script. So I wrote this really ambitious script and then, got produced and we sold out. And it was like, the other was like 2000, 2001. And it gave me a lot of confidence, New City, Chicago publication, does a top 5 shows to see now in their theater section. We got number 1. And it was like number 2 was Steppenwolf. Number 3 was Goodman Theater. Number 4 was Lyric Opera. And I was like, holy shit. So, I was like, awesome. I can do this. I like writing. And then my girlfriend then at the time had kind of a sweet sugar mama job. It was like, hey, you want to come to LA with me? So I'm like, yeah, I want to go to LA. So I left Chicago, went to LA, and I, did it in reverse. I went to LA and I quit acting and just started writing, doing effects and more behind the scenes endeavors. And then, 5 years later, came back to Chicago because of, basically relationship shit. You know what I mean? Chased her back here, it didn't work out. But now I'm in Chicago and I was like, well, shit, what am I going to do now? I feel like I'm back to square one again. I lost all that momentum. Like, no, I have all these new skill sets. I'm going to start a Chicago film production company. And I know what I don't have in funds, I have an ambition. I have now that I'm back in Chicago, I have a lot of favors I can phone up. I can get my theater community to come out and like help me film this and that. So I got a job at a camera rental house, and we prepare cinematographers for TV shows and commercials. And on the weekends, I would take the gear home and piecemeal films together. But yeah, to get back to your question, I'd quit acting by and large, and I did a filmmaking journey, which linked into a couple horror films that I did, mid-length films, that did well at festivals. A pile of music videos, and then one day, my friend Robin Coffeen, who's one of the firemen's wives on Chicago Fire went to her birthday party. And she was like, "Whoa, Ryan, look at you! You look so different. You should totally start acting again." There's not a lot of what you look like out there for people who are classically trained. They're pulling assholes off of bar stools to fill these roles that you could easily take away from them. Chicago Fire needs arsonists and PD needs criminals. So, I got an agent again and joined the Screen Actors Guild. And yeah, I play truckers, assholes, and dickheads a couple times a year on TV. But it's not, it's a side hustle, I would say. As much as I would love, if it took off, I would lean into it. Trust me, it was my first passion. But I'm a scatterbrain. And I'm a jack of all trades, master of none, 6-degree black belt of the martial arts, as I like to say. Yeah, I have my thumb in a lot of pies, except for like music, and I don't really draw very well, but I throw myself at all the other stuff.
Yeah.
Yes, back to what you're saying. I did an ABC after school special. I was like a featured extra, which is why that credit's on IMDb. But most of my parts that I play, like, my characters don't have names. Food truck operator number 2, and trucker number 1, insurgent number 3.
Yeah. My favorite nameless role that I've ever seen in credits for any movie was in The Lost World Jurassic Park. There's a guy that's credited as Unlucky Bastard. And he's just a guy that gets eaten by the T-Rex on the streets in San Diego.
Oh, yeah. I remember that part. I love giant monsters eating people. Oh,
Yeah.
it always makes me smile.
Yeah.
Vagina dentata is what it's officially called in the literary world. Vagina with teeth. It's a return to the womb with an added element of terror.
Yeah.
Which
is also, that's a movie.
Teeth.
Yeah, Teeth. Yeah.
Yeah. It's a good movie.
Yeah.
It's just not huge and can't, bites off. I learned that in a screenwriting lock-in seminar course that I took in LA when I was like really leaning into being a screenwriter at the time, and Robert McKee is the screenwriting guru that all the big studios send their writers to tune up, their skill set. He's, did you ever see the movie Adaptation with Nicolas Cage?
Yeah.
Brian Cox plays Robert McKee. That big writing seminar. Nicolas Cage asks a question. Brian Cox chews him out. Why the fuck would you ever do that? So I took that course, but it was a horror day. And it was like 12 hours of talking about horror scripts and the history of horror and the genres and the subgenres. And then the last 2 hours, we watched Alien and stopped and paused and broke it down and, dissected it. That day, got them in my file cabinet right here. The best notes I've ever taken in my life. Like, what a bad student I told you I was.
Yeah.
I couldn't have been more diligent, Yeah. I was like a courtroom stenographer. I'm gonna pull them out and read them again now that I haven't thought about them in a minute. But yeah, when we're done with this, I'm gonna read those.
Back to what you were saying about doing like acting and filmmaking when you came back to this area. I think a lot of people also just kind of like underestimate sometimes how much stuff does get filmed around here.
Yes. Yes and no, I would say, but like I'm also not the best at networking.
Yeah.
Hermit kind of tendencies. I don't go out to like events and hobnob and like beg people for parts. I just like let my agency send me auditions, and like if they like me, I get cast. That's that. Um, I've worked on some stuff for friends and stuff, but there are a lot of um, underground indie guerrilla filmmakers out there still that are making really cool stuff. And uh, if any of them are watching,
Have you seen the movie Revealer?
again,
Revealer?
Reviller?
Yeah, it's like a Shudder exclusive movie a few years ago. It was filmed here in Chicago.
No, I can't say I have.
Oh,
Reviller.
yeah, Revealer.
Go on. I'm gonna pull
Yeah,
it up.
dude, look it up on Shudder and watch it because it's like the premise of it is that a stripper and a like super religious like protester lady. It's set in the 80s, so there's a stripper and a super religious protester lady get locked in a peep show booth during the apocalypse.
2023.
Yeah, it's really good. I had the 2 stars of it on here I guess like 2 years ago now.
See. Okay, well, that's going on the list. Boy, yeah, it's moments like these I feel like I get my pants down, but like who knows what maniacal course I was on or trying to make at the time. Um, uh, okay, cool. On the list.
It was probably my favorite horror movie that I saw that year, just because the premise of it was fun and they did a lot with very little. Like it had like a shoestring budget from what I understand, and like they had basically one set for the entire like filming. So it was
No problem.
yeah, it's fantastic though.
Turning nothing into something is like a very admirable skill set to have, and you don't even it can be learned. Absolutely, it's all elbow grease. I'd much rather watch a movie poorly filmed, like that looks cheap with a strong story and heart and ambition behind it than a slick, boring piece of shit.
Yeah.
If it looks like $1 million, who gives a shit? If you're not saying anything and you don't have any like heart behind it, you lost me. It's
Yeah, because
competitive.
that's that kind of goes back to my point earlier about like things are a lot more fun when you can tell the people who made them were having fun. Like no matter what the budget was, like
Yeah.
when you can tell the people that made it were having fun and not just phoning it in, like that's the stuff that I love the most.
Yeah. It's like watching a stand-up comedian who's like comfortable and having fun and laughing at their own jokes. Like even if you don't like the jokes, you're like, okay, you're having a good time. We'll have a good time with you.
Yeah. So tell me about your special effects work because I saw the armor that you made for Dark Lord Day this year. And like, what's your favorite kind of stuff to make as far as special effects and costumes and things like that?
um, Good question. I would be honest. I would say effects is like I just have such a like love and a passion and a respect for that craft. I'll, but it is my shortest suit in the closet, and um, uh, but I, try to make the coolest shit that I can to the best of my ability, and um, so, and you never make the same thing twice. And I only for a year or two, like when I lived in LA, did I really try to apply myself as an effects artist who applied prosthetics and painted the face. And, that is such you got to be doing that all the time to, be at the top of your game. And I just, because I spread myself out so thin, I don't get to really, and practical effects, there's so many things to know and so many disciplines. It's really hard to do it all well. When I lived in LA, that was the first thing that was very apparent to me is like, oh, there's a guy that they bring in just to make molds. That's all he does across 10 different shops. This guy, all he does is sculpt. That guy is a painter, you know? There were very few people who did it all, and that was intimidating to me because I'm like, but I want to do it all, you know.
Yeah.
So something front to back, and so when I make something, my sculpt might not be the best, my mold might look ugly, you know, but like you just get it out the best way you can, and um, yeah, my favorite effects, honestly, were theater effects. I really loved doing them because it was just challenging, but it was also live audiences were very impressed with a big kinetic blood effect on stage that they didn't see coming. You know, there was a play I did for Defiant Theater called Flaming Guns of the Purple Stage. And this guy got shot like 6 times and then cartoonishly comes back to life and grabs a pint of beer, drinks the beer, and then the effect is like all the beer spouts out of his chest, you know, like a cartoon. So made him he was like a biker character. So he had a vest with all these like aquarium tubes laced in it, and it went down into his pant leg. And on the set, there was a kitchen island. He'd stand behind the kitchen island on a raised stage, and I would be on my back on a skateboard, roll underneath the stage, pop up behind the kitchen island, connect him to a pressurized canister, and then on cue, you know, hit the effect or like, you know, blood shots here and there. And, you know, you could just, live audience reactions are really easy to get in a place where you pat yourself on the back a little bit, you know, and you're like, yeah, fuck yeah. But in film, you know, things got to look pretty nice, you know. And my favorite horror movie is The Thing, you know, and for obviously John Carpenter is like a god to me, but so is Rob Bottin. And I haven't met many practical effects artists who would say that Rob Bottin's work on The Thing is like the best practical effects that have ever been pulled off. And he was like 21 years old or something when he did that movie. It's like unbelievable. Yeah. Stan Winston helped a little bit with the dog kennel scene, but you know, and some of the miniatures, but like that movie stands up. I mean,
so I haven't seen that one in forever. I need to watch it again sometime.
Okay. Can I break format here and just show you what I'm talking about?
Yeah.
Okay, here's my nerd John Carpenter shelf. Okay, ready? So there's Ultimate McCready #1 Outpost. There's #2. There's #3 at the end of the movie when he's all frozen up. There's the Thing cover boy character, and then I have 2 dog kennel toys, you know, where one of them I'm going to keep in the box and the other I'm going to build up, and you know, and then like, yeah, it goes on and on. I'm sure a lot of your viewers and yourself have nerd rooms. Yeah, it's just like probably have a condo in Florida or something if I sold all these toys.
Yeah.
If I ever sire a child, I can put them through college with them. Thanks for looking at my nerdy things.
Oh, yeah, no, I always love checking stuff like that out too, because I've got like big collections all over this apartment like that. But
look at my toe.
No, speaking of practical effects, like one of my favorite things has always just kind of been the effects that Sam Raimi was able to pull off in the original Evil Dead movies too. Because like that's like, talk about doing a lot with like a shoestring budget. Like the first 2 movies, and just like basically it's all just revolving around that cabin too. Like there's it's so simple, but also it just looks complex.
And there's cool makeups in there, but like the really cool stars effects wise for me, like the camera tricks and the ingenuity and the like shoestring, like you were saying, like taking a camera and putting it on a board and 2 guys run with each end of the board to get that, you know, crazy camera effect, or reverse photography with the vines wrapping around, you know, like that stuff hadn't been done. You see it all the time now, but like that was that was like mind blowing, yeah, I love Evil Dead 1. I love 2 is obviously like, a remake of 1 with some more slapsticky stuff, and they both have their own place. And oh, here's a funny quick story. I knew this guy who was an effects guy in the West Coast, and I went to he had a house party, and he had just like props all over the place. And he had deadites from Army of Darkness like in his garage, just like leaning up against, like a ping pong table or something. Like they were deteriorated, falling apart. It was just like all these artifacts from movies that have shaped my life that were just like laying around. He had okay, oh dude, there was a coffee table, there was a glass coffee table, and the glass was on top of the creature that comes out of the cave in Big Trouble in Little China and grabs the guy. I had like a beer, and I was like, is that what they think it is? And like, yeah, holy shit. Went in his bathroom. Like Patricia Arquette's false boobs were up in the shower from some other movie. It was just like like Candyland. Is like, oh my God.
Yeah.
Can I move in right now?
Dude, every now and then I have to like fight the urge to buy the replica Gremlins props and just have them like posed in different ways around the apartment.
Oh, you're a Gremlins guy. All right.
Yeah.
Gremlins. Yeah. My buddy Sean's a huge Gremlins fan. He's got like, the huge Lady Gremlin, and Joe Dante, another genius filmmaker.
Yeah.
Piranha, Gremlins. Yeah.
Yeah, when I lived in Virginia, there was a local FYE that went out of business, and they had like the replica of the Gremlins flasher, and it was marked down like 50% off or something like that. And
Yeah.
to this day, like I kick myself for not buying it when it was just like right there.
Is that your favorite Gremlin?
Yeah, because it's one of the most ridiculous. I like that one, and I like the Jazz Club Gremlin. That's like every time that I see that, I always just feel like that's kind of like my vibe. Just like sitting the Jazz Club Gremlin sitting in a dark bar with his cigar, just like drinking whiskey, and he's just like. Mm.
I like the kooky one though.
Oh yeah.
It's just like, he's just so expressive and fun.
Yeah.
I like Stripe,
Yeah. Yeah, I've had you for a little bit over an hour now, so I don't want to take up too much of your evening. Where can listeners get the Godfly, the Birdfeeder, and other Blind Cyclops books?
blindcyclopsbooks.com. And if you're in Chicago, you can enter in the code Chicago Pickup, and we'll send it to you free shipping or hand deliver it maybe. You can also go to Instagram, Blind Cyclops Books, and you can find all the different local stores that carry our books. More to be announced soon. We have new titles being announced. Fan Expo is coming up in August. So if anybody's going to the Chicago Fan Expo, please come see our table. We're going to be selling books at special one-time costs there without any tax or government influence or shipping. Yeah. And I hope you pick up a book because you're going to get more in the book. I still have a lot of all of the fanfare and stuff that, for these second editions. We're still actively packing all the fun toys and book plates and stickers and such in the back. But make no mistake, you're going to be getting a one-of-a-kind horror story, no matter what title you get.
Yeah, and thanks again for taking the time to do this, Ryan.
Absolutely. Thank you for having me. Hope we can do it again sometime, and hope to see you at Fan Expo.
you fall, run you fall.